One of aviation's biggest failures was government-funded. What a novelty! This is Libertarian View, your source of decentralized and distributed information. This article was suggested and written by Saturno, reviewed by Paulo Almeida and Narado, and produced by J.J. Libert. Between the 60s and 70s, Dassault Aviation, a French company world famous for its military and executive aircraft, tried to venture into commercial aviation. Its newest product was the Dassault Mercure. However, such an endeavor resulted in a resounding failure, leaving a huge hole for taxpayers to plug. In terms of technology, the Mercure was an airplane designed to go head-to-head with the Boeing 737-200, and could originally carry up to 150 passengers, which was more than the 737-200, which could hold up to 119 seats. However, despite being larger and able to carry more passengers than its competitors, the Mercure presented a serious problem. In fact, the plane was designed to have a feature that turned out to be a big reason for its failure: its low range. While the Mercure had a range of 1,700 kilometers, the Boeing 737-200 had a range about 3 times as much. In fact, the French plane would be better than competitors at short distances, which gave the manufacturer the impression of being a revolutionary design. Dassault decided to invest in such a project as, departing from Paris, there are several possible destinations within a radius of 1,700 kilometers. Thus, Mercure would make such journeys more efficiently than competitors. Based on this premise, they took out a large loan from the French government to finance the construction of the factories needed to build the aircraft. In the view of French rulers, such a project would serve to boost national industry. The state is estimated to have financed half of the Dassault project. The counterpart was that, after selling about 200 aircraft, Dassault would start paying off the loan made by the French government. Development began in 1967 and the first flight took place 4 years later. The expectation was that around 300 units would be sold in less than a decade. The result? Well, they only delivered 11 units of the Mercure, and the plane's production didn't even last 10 years. This wasn't for lack of marketing. Dassault and the French government invested a lot to show the airlines that the Mercure was good and that the investment would be worth it. But, due to its low autonomy, the plane was not sold. Nobody wanted to replace a versatile plane like the 737, capable of efficiently flying short and medium routes, with one of more limited utility. But why is having low autonomy a problem? First, as mentioned earlier, airlines scrapped the Mercure in favor of longer-range planes. Second, this purpose of traveling up to 1,700 km would work well from Paris. But from other parts of Europe or the United States, there would be few routes available for such a short-range plane. In fact, the range of routes would be so limited that it would not be worth investing in this plane. Another point was that the Boeing 737, unlike the Mercure, was an airplane that could easily be suited for short and medium routes. Boeing was able to adapt the fuselage and adopt new engines to serve the most diverse market segments. Therefore, over the decades, the Boeing 737 evolved into a family of aircraft that are still in use today. If you've had the opportunity to travel by plane here in Brazil, especially if you went with GOL, you most likely traveled in one of the Boeing 737 versions. The Mercure, on the other hand, as it is a project more focused on a more specific niche, routes short films departing from Paris, had no room for upgrades in the project. Dassault even designed a new version of the plane, the Mercure 200, with 2 Secma CFM56 engines, also used in the new versions of the Boeing 737 and Airbus A320, as they are quieter and have better fuel economy than Pratt & Whitney JT8D used in the version of the Mercure 100 and also in the Boeing 737-100. However, transforming the Mercure into an aircraft with greater range, to meet the demands of broader market segments, was not so simple. It would require complex and expensive interventions in the project, with unsatisfactory results, which led Dassault to give up on the idea. In addition to the problems with the plane itself, other economic factors contributed to the Mercure's failure. In the 1970s, there was a major oil crisis, which drove fuel prices sky high. There was also a devaluation of the dollar, in addition to high inflation in Europe. All of these problems further undermined the market for Mercure, as operating this plane would become very expensive for airlines. Because of all this, its production lasted only 8 years, until Dassault gave up on this and any other project in commercial aviation. However, despite your commercial failure, Mercure has not recorded any accidents or incidents in its time of operation. Yes, this plane was put into operation by Air Inter, a French airline with good participation from the government of the country. The company was ordered to buy some Mercure units to justify at least some of the money Dassault burned on the project, resulting in more than 440,000 operated flights and nearly 44 million passengers carried. There were 360,000 hours of operation, without any accidents. Even though the plane was profitable for the operator, its measly 11 units sold, including the prototype converted to operation, did not pay even 7% of the project's costs. Dassault would need to sell around 150 units of the plane just to cover manufacturing costs. Moral of the story: like any other company, to try to be successful, an aircraft manufacturer must always pay attention to the market. Study with customers their needs so that projects are as assertive as possible. In the case of Dassault, it burned the money it wanted, convinced the government to burn another public money in a project that, if it had been better evaluated, would certainly have been discarded. But the history of French aviation did not end with the failure of Mercure. Just to cite another example, there is the case of the Concorde, the famous commercial supersonic aircraft jointly financed by the governments of France and the United Kingdom. If you want to know more about this, check out our video, "Why Don't We See More Supersonic Commercial Airplanes?" See the link here in the description. In the free market, marketing can even help you, but if you don't deliver a product that meets expectations, the market itself will insist on punishing you. And after that failure, Dassault went bankrupt, right? No. Behold, the French government used the money stolen from citizens to cover the breach caused by a project that it decided to finance. Without government interference, the only one harmed would be the company responsible for creating the Mercure. However, as the state wanted to interfere, all French citizens ended up paying for the failure of an institution. All this to save a company from bankruptcy due to its mistakes, to the detriment of the entire economy of the country. No wonder that, since 1995, the Mercure has been just a museum piece. Thank you for your audience. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up icon below and share the video in your social network. If you want to be notified of other videos, hit subscribe and then the bell icon. See you soon.